Alright, so this is going to be my first video to start this new process off. This is something that a lot of people end up doing. I don't know. I'm going to give it a shot. I feel like I got a whole bunch of stuff going on that would be interesting to some, educational to others, and motivational to everybody. And so that's what I'm gonna try to lay down on here. I already got a YouTube. Well, this channel already has some videos on it. They're very random, just random videos that I had posted and stuff like that. Get into a story of how I ended up getting like all of my subscribers that I have so far, and basically to the point that I am right now. But I felt like it would only be right with a proper introduction to what I want this YouTube channel to be, what I want this brand to be, what I'm looking to, get out of it, what I'm looking to accomplish by it. And, we got to let the people know what's up. So that's what we're doing right now. You're going to get a lot of videos like this. Mainly, those will probably be lives. It'll just be me talking. I don't know, man. I watch a lot of YouTube and I talk a lot. So I don't know. I feel like I could definitely have a good perspective on some things that are going down, right? That I'm interested in. If you're not interested in it, just keep watching it. I don't know. But so I'm a mechanic here in Phoenix, Arizona. It's gonna always be bright and sunny like this. I'm a mobile mechanic. I've been doing mechanic. I've been wrenching for probably going on 13, 14 years. I started my mechanical career at a dealership in Bullhead, Arizona called Finley GMC, or GM Finley. It was actually a Chevrolet dealership, but Bullhead City, aka Laughlin, is a small town, so we serviced all the stuff, right? And I was going to school. I did this GM ASAP program, and basically what that program is, it's a dedicated automotive program to like GM vehicles. But in theory, they teach you, it's a 2-year program, and they're going to teach you like the theory behind mechanics and mechanical motors and stuff like that. And then they kind of have a focus on GM. But ultimately, all it really was that you would be working at a GM dealership while you're going to school. My perspective on, I need to get some gas. My perspective on the school, excuse me. My perspective on the schooling that I did, it was way better than UTI. I went to UTI. They told me, all right, look, it's going to be like a year and a half of just general theory, and then you can buy additional blocks for whatever brand that you want to work in. So if you want to work in GM, then you can, after you do the additional year and a half, then you can buy like a semester, I guess you could call it, of GM dedicated training, or Ford dedicated training, or Dodge dedicated training. And all that was going to come out to like $50,000 to $60,000. And I had a DUI. When I went to school, I was just turning 22. I'm 38 now. And so I had a DUI, and it was still fresh. And so none of the dealerships here in town could bring me on due to insurance purposes. They were like, yo, we can't insure you, you got that DUI. And so luckily I was able to get on with Finley in Bullhead. They accepted me. They were able to get me in there, And yeah, I started working there. It was pretty awesome because I was doing bumper to bumper from the start. You know, I was doing oil changes and stuff like that. But you know, once you master the oil change, you know, then you just start moving up. And I was selling work, and then they were giving it to other people. And I, you know, had to fight for the work. I had to fight to do the work that I was selling, you know, because at that point I was just being paid like hourly. I wasn't on flat rate. And so, you know, through process and trial and error, you know, I was able to kind of, you know, get my hands dirty and start moving up the ranks within that shop. And by the time I left, you know, I was, and this is like, by the time I was done with school, so I did 2 years in school, and essentially what you do at the GMASAP program is you do a year of, you do not a year, but you do a semester in class doing theory, and then you do a semester at the dealership applying that theory, right? And that's really that's a very key, beneficial part to this. I'm gonna get this gas going real quick. Hold on for me real quick, guys. Let me get this gas going. All right, sorry about that. But the going back and forth from the shop to school, extremely beneficial, because when I was done with school after 2 years of doing that, essentially when I'm done with my schooling, I'm not going to a dealership or a shop looking for a job. And then let's say that I was going to a shop or a dealership and I was looking for a job, just graduating some kind of an automotive schooling, right? The majority of the times in those types of situations, you're going to be a lube tech. You're not going to have any tools. You're not going to have like any shop knowledge, right? Because there's a difference between a mechanic there's a difference between a mechanic who ain't never worked in a shop or a dealership, and they kind of just, you know, do things that they just learned over time. That's a different mentality from a person who works at an independent shop and they've always worked at an independent shop, to a person who works at a dealership and then they always worked at a dealership. All three of these people are doing the exact same thing. They're fixing cars, they're diagnosing cars, but there's a different mentality on how they do it for their environment. You know, I'll give you a really good example. Like I said, I'm a mobile mechanic, right? I've been doing mobile mechanic for going on like 6 or 7 years, right? But when I'm out in the field and I'm diagnosing something, I don't have somebody I can just look over to the next bay and say, hey, can you hold this for me? Can you hold this test light here while I crank this car over and see if this starter is getting power or not? You know, I don't have anybody to kind of lean on. So there are differences in the ways that people are mechanics. Let me stop myself real quick. The main focus with this channel, in this brand that I want to try to, like, you know, get going, is to truly help people. My biggest thing is, you know, I want to pass along knowledge and information within the automotive industry, right? Like I said, I'm a mechanic. I've been in this automotive industry for over 10 years, and I call it the transportation industry, because that's essentially what we're doing. And I like to say it like that because you can start off being a mechanic and end it being 1,000 different things. You don't have to stay a mechanic. You could use that as a stepping stone to getting into something in the automotive or the transportation industry that may suit you a lot better. Being a mechanic it's a dog eat dog job. It's just like with anything, and it's very demanding on your body. And the mentors that I've had when I was coming up, it was some sad situations, some very inspirational situations. All of them are inspirational, but some people are making out better than others. You can be 60, being the highest paid tech at the shop, but you only got a 401k with I don't know, let's say you got a 401k with $150,000 in it. That's all you have. Maybe you got your house, that's paid off, and so your bills are lower. You got that 150 sitting, but you retire, you're going to lose that annual income, and now that 150 has got to replace that. And if you were the highest paid tech, and let's say that you were saving money in that, but you were truly living off of, let's say that you were truly living off of $20,000. Your house is paid for, you got all your bills in line. You're not really out here spending your own retirement and stuff like that. I mean, you're at retiree age, and so you're not really spending too much. But even if you were to do that, right, that 150 is going to last you, what, 5, 7, maybe 8 years? You can stretch it. So if you retire when you're 60, you're only going to be able to not work and live off of that money until you're 70. And let's say that you're going to live till you're 83. So what does that, equate to, And so to say that is to say, there's a lot of different things within the automotive industry that you can transition into doing. When I got that job at that dealership and I started seeing recalls and stuff like that, and learning how the whole process with how techs in the dealership deal with recalls, thought to myself was, you know what, it would be pretty cool if I was one of the people that sat back and looked at all of the work orders and analyzed them and came up with the algorithm to how to detect potential recalls, and figure out what to do to revise these recalls. And I was like, that could be something cool. We also had the GM Global Tech Hotline, where if you're in a situation and you're doing warranty-based work, right, and you cannot come up with a solution to it, because, at the dealership, you're dealing with all cars, but you're also dealing with brand new cars that have issues that we haven't come in contact with yet. And then when we come in contact with them, we don't have a tree chart on how to diagnose it. We're just kind of going off of the knowledge that we already have. And so sometimes we will have to call into I think it's called the GM Tech Global Hotline, and then we would speak with master world-class technicians to get, essentially we have to get their tree or chart tree process of the proper steps to figure out what part needs to be replaced. And then once we go through those parts, we would submit that information over to them, and then they would say, okay, well, look, replace this part. We're going to approve the replacement of this part. I had back in the day, this was 2016 or 17, right when the new Stingrays came out, we had a guy who, whenever he was making a long bank turn on the left, it would make a really loud winding noise. We ended up having to replace the rear end in that car that had 5,000 miles on it, but we had to get in contact with GM Global Connect to get them to do the walkthrough, the flow chart, and to approve the replacement of that rear end. And I was like, you know what? That could be something that's cool to do when I retire. You know, I could just sit in the office. I've gained all this mechanical knowledge, so now I get to apply it in helping techs at the dealership, you know, approving parts and stuff. So that's what I mean by there's a lot of different things that you can do within the automotive industry. I mean, you could become a service advisor. You could not want to work on cars and be like, hey, I'd much rather sell parts, you know? Or I'd much rather be like a service shop manager, you know? But figuring out that is just something that you're gonna have to do along your process. But what I wanna do is I wanna be able to tell people this information, because you know you got to have an exit when you're entering this game. You know, with any game you need to know like how you want to leave when you're coming in, because that'll set the tone for how you spend 20-30 years of doing that process, you know. And there is information out there: flat rate technician, mobile car doctor, the dude that works on all the Volkswagens and stuff, Eric the car guy, South Main Auto. You know, I watch all these guys, you know, and they are giving out helpful information for technicians, but it's mainly geared towards DIY fixing of cars, you know. And what I want to do is essentially just give information and helpful tips, tricks, and options for technicians that are either coming into the industry, or trying to figure out what's my next step, because I don't like working on cars, or maybe I'm just kind of, you know, spinning the wheel and I got to figure out something else, you know, because there's a lot to do out here and I want to have fun. You know, I want this to be a fun channel. I got some really cool ideas of things that'll be entertaining for y'all to watch and stuff like that. I'll do a couple of DIYs. I'll kind of show you guys some of the work that I do, you know, while I'm out here on the field. But just like a FYI, this is not like, that's not what this channel is going to be geared towards. You know, I'll definitely show you guys fixing stuff, crazy stuff when I find it, you know, crazy customers when I get them, you know. But mainly it's just gonna be like helpful information, entertaining information. I would say kind of like a mix between like Scotty Kilmore and maybe like Flat Rate Master, and maybe, I don't know, like Eric the car guy or something like that. Or Chris, not Chris Fix, because all he does is fix cars and stuff like that. But it's gonna be like educational. I wanna start getting some interviews with other mechanics to give you different perspectives on what it is like being a mechanic, you know. And like I said, I got some fun stuff, you know. I've been kind of like I've been wanting to do this for a while. If you look at my YouTube videos, I've been posting videos for quite some time. I had a couple of, and they're all random videos, from guns to RC cars to drones and stuff like that. Just regular like vlogging type videos of things that I'm into and stuff. But I want to be able to help people out mainly, man, you know. Obviously, we're all trying to make some money, right? But what I've come to find out is if you help people, that's how you make money. You got to be able to provide some kind of a service for people to be able to make money. Let me go get this gas ready. And so with this channel, I'm not heavily focused on making money off of it. I mean, like, obviously, you know, we want to grow the brand and stuff and become, you know, I want to get it to a point to where I can be I want to be recognized within the automotive community, you know. Hoonigans, 1320, you know, big brands that are now recognized within the automotive industry that were just kind of brands, you know. Out here in Phoenix, we got this truck car show called Dino's Get Down that's coming up, and you know, it's huge out here. It's a big thing, and all it took was just somebody saying, I like these types of cars, and let's have a car show. But so that's pretty much the gist. I went to school back and forth up in Bullhead, ended up leaving the shop that I was at, and it was only because of the simple politics that any and everybody has to play working a corporate 9 to 5. I wanted more money. I felt like I wasn't being appreciated for the work that I was doing. I was doing heavy line work and still only making like, I think I was making like 15 or 16 bucks an hour. And I was trying to tell them like, yo, just give me like 18 bucks an hour, because I had just moved up there. I had to physically move up there. So I was like, give me like 15, 18 bucks an hour, and I'm doing all this work. There were guys at the shop that was turning down tickets. They didn't want to do work. They were new hires and they were making like 20 something an hour, and they didn't want to do it because, like I said, this is something that's not uncommon. Within working in the corporate 9 to 5, to get more than a $3 raise, I mean, you're gonna have to quit your job, go to another job doing the exact same thing, get that $3 raise on your entry into that new job, right? And then once you're ready for your next raise, right, they're not going to give you $3. They're just going to keep giving you quarter, maybe 50, 70 cents, a dollar a year or something like that. But you're going to have to leave. And then you could probably go back to the shop that you left, right? That, let's say that you were making 15 bucks an hour. You left there to go to, you left shop A to go to shop B. Now you're making 18 bucks an hour. But shop B isn't going to give you a $3 raise. So now if you want to get to 21, you go back to shop A and be like, look, I'll come back here. And obviously my skill set, it is what it is where it should be for the money that I'm asking for. So give me 21. And then they give you 21 bucks an hour. And you had to do this whole song and dance, quit, leave, and then come back just to get that $6 raise when, I mean, in all honesty, if you got a good tech, man, you should do whatever you can do to keep them and keep them happy. And so, yeah, I ended up leaving. I went to a mom and pop shop here in Phoenix. That was a eye-opening experience, to say the least, because the dad who started the shop was trying to retire. So he was letting his son manage the shop, everything. But his son did not know about cars, right? Maybe, I guess you could say he knew about business, but that's left to question. But he didn't really know about cars, and this was all happening like right when I came in. So there was like a lot of weird stuff going on, and that only lasted maybe like 3 to 4 months. And then I went and I worked at a mobile mechanic company called, at the time, I worked at Your Mechanic, which is a mobile mechanic company that's nationwide. And I worked at Your Mechanic for probably 3 to 4 years. And then I switched mobile mechanic companies because wrench was just becoming like it was becoming a headache. I was going out, fixing a lot of people's mistakes, doing like a lot of comebacks for other people and stuff like that. Not really getting, not getting like the support that I was wanting. And I ended up going to another mobile mechanic company called Wrench. And Wrench was nice. It was cool. I liked Wrench. And stayed with Wrench for pretty much the same, like 3 or 4 years. Wrench ended up buying out Your Mechanic. So now Your Mechanic is a part of Wrench. And I'll do segments on like some of these companies because I believe that Wrench, they're still like, it's the largest mobile mechanic company in the nation. So I don't think that they were going anywhere, and I'm pretty sure that they're still around. And I'm pretty sure that there are people that may see this that are considering working for Wrench, working with them and stuff. So I want to be able to give you, and I know it's really bad shaky. Let me slow down so I can get it right. Got a tire that I need to get balanced. That's why it gets all shaky. But I'll go over like the different, like, you know, the differences that I encountered with wrench and your mechanic, and you know, how I felt that things worked well and how I felt that things could need some improvement with those companies, because that's some good information right there. That's a good way to get into doing mobile mechanic, you know. Yeah, and so I was with those companies for, let's say, a combined total, let's just call it like 7 years, right? And over that 7 years of doing mobile mechanic, I was able to build my own personal clientele without poaching any clients from either one of those companies. I never felt like that was the right thing to do. I tried helping a lady out this one time who was broke. She needed what did she need? She needed like she needed the bearings replaced on this like old Sienna or something like that. I can't exactly remember what the repair was, but you know, obviously the job, they were going to charge her full price, and I'm there with her. She's like, I gotta I gotta drop all these kids off, pick them up. This is the only vehicle I have. It's the summertime in AZ. It's hot. I'm like, man, you know, you're pulling on my heartstrings. And so what I did was I told her that I would do the repair for like a fraction of the cost, just to help her out, right? I wasn't trying to make money on it. It was purely to help this lady out. This lady called in a wrench saying I messed her car up because that car was an old piece. I replaced, yeah, it was a wheel bearing. Her thermostat blew out. Her thermostat stuck, blew the hose off, and then they blamed it on us. Blamed it on me. But seeing how she called in a wrench, let them know that I had been working on her car. They were like, yo, you're not supposed to be doing that. And I told them what the whole situation was, because I charged her like $80 for like a 2.5 hour job, you know. And it was just off of me just trying to help her. And that's what saved me in that situation, because Wrench knew, like, he's not charging enough to be out here trying to make money and steal clients. Like, it was truly just like, I'm trying to help you out type deal. And after that, while I was working for those companies, I never would do anything. People would ask all the time, hey, I would much rather pay you than pay Wrench. And I said, nah, man, you know, I've had this bad experience with this lady and I just don't want to do it. But at the same time, I'm doing mobile mechanic. So I'm outside fixing somebody's car. I have on my work uniform and I'm performing work. And people would pull up and say, well, hey, are you a mechanic? And I'll say, no, I'm a dentist. I'm just trying to fix the teeth on this car. But people would pull up and, you know, I would give them my number. To me, that's not poaching. If you see me out and about working on something and you're not a client that's coming in from this company, then, you know, that's kind of free game or fair game. But really what it was that kind of propelled me into being able to go off on my own was I started doing Turo. And then I started meeting a lot of Turo hosts and stuff like that that had big fleets of cars. And I was an extremely useful, I was an extremely useful asset to them. Mobile mechanic, you're doing Turo, car rentals, you know, it was a very beneficial thing for both parties. And so that's what kind of propelled me into kind of going off on my own and getting me to the point to where I am right now. But yeah, I mean, that's kind of like the meat and potatoes of my whole story, man. I just, you know, just been out here working on cars outside in the sun. It's hot as ever, and I just been doing that. And so yeah, that's my little bit of background. I gave you guys a little bit of what I want to do moving forward. And I feel like what I'll probably end up doing is just every morning on my way to work, I'll just probably go live or make a video like this, and we'll just talk about topics, you know, like, I don't know, the difference between wrenching your mechanic. What is it like being a mechanic today? How is it going to be in the future with EV vehicles becoming more and more progressive in the industry, and not so much just full EV vehicles, but hybrids as well. You know, and like, you know, I'm in the car, so like, where do I see the automotive industry going? You know, some theories. It's always good to throw those theories out early, because if they come true, then you have some kind of a documentation that, you know, hey, I was on that thought process with how things worked. But that's what we got going on. That's what we're gonna have going on. And this is what you're getting. So, like, share, and subscribe. I got some cool things, Tool Tuesdays. And today is Tuesday, right? So we'll do a tool. This is the tool. Icon, Harbor Freight, right? This light is the shit. It's bright, it's rechargeable, it's pretty durable. I've went through like 3 or 4 of them. I keep losing them because they got a magnet on the bottom of them, and then I'll be doing something, and now I just left it. You know, just like mechanics leave their flashlights indoors when they're doing windows and stuff. You know, that was something I always used to do. But that's a good tool for Tool Tuesday. That's a very useful tool. I'll show you the other tool that any mechanic will say that's their favorite tool, and that would be this guy, the pocket screwdriver. Makes life so much easier. So you got 2 tools, but I'll do more tools and stuff like that. I'll do a walk around of my truck, where it's at right now, kind of what I'm thinking about doing to it. Show you my old truck. Got some pictures of the vehicle that I started doing mobile mechanic in. 2005 Pontiac Sunfire. That's what I started doing my mobile mechanic in, and it was awesome, baby. That was my baby. And I also do Turo too. So I got perspective on Turo. I've had some crazy things going on with Turo. I got a 23 Chevrolet Corvette that was red mist metallic with the natural dip tan interior that the cartel stole from me. That's going to be a good video. I should have been doing this before when I had the vehicle, and then I could have been going through the whole process of how I got stolen, but I'm still in the process of figuring out, or not figuring out, but I'm still in the process of dealing with the claims on that. So that'll be something that you guys will be able to watch and see, you know. I'll show you guys about on from the Turo perspective, you know. So yeah, man, just stick with it. If you enjoyed it, if me just talking gave you a little bit, like, share, and subscribe. You know, we need to grow the brand so that people will respect the brand, and then I can get better content. It's not so much about the money, right? But I just need the brand to have a following, so that when I'm going to people and I'm trying to do these interviews, they can kind of see what I'm trying to do. It's very, I've been wanting to do interview mechanics for a very long time. None of my friends that are mechanics want to do interviews. They don't want to be on camera. They don't want to be interviewed about being a mechanic. It's so weird. So I just got to, you know, work on finding the right people that want to be, so that we can give this information out to y'all. But I'm gonna cut it off because I have to make a phone call real quick, and then I'm gonna post another one tomorrow. This is 33 minutes, so that's a good video. Watch it all the way through, and yeah, enjoy it. I'll see y'all tomorrow.